Commander Sarah Chun pressed her face against the observation window and watched the Crethany ships block out the stars. Each vessel was the size of a city, black metal covered in spikes and weapon ports. She had read the reports, but seeing them with her own eyes made her stomach drop. How many? She asked Lieutenant Torres, who stood beside her with a datapad shaking in his hands. 15 capital ships, maybe 40 smaller ones. Our sensors can't get exact numbers through all that interference they're pumping out. Sarah nodded and turned back to look at Research Station Kepler. Our home for the past 3 years looked so small compared to the alien fleet. The station housed 200 scientists and 50 security personnel. They had mining equipment, research labs, and basic defensive systems. Nothing designed for real war. The communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in broken human language, each word sounding like rocks grinding together. Small flesh creatures. You will surrender now. Resistance brings pain. Submit and live as slaves. Fight and die quickly. Sarah grabbed the communicator. This is Commander Sarah Chun of United Earth Research Station Kepler. We are a peaceful scientific outpost. We have no quarrel with your people. A sound like laughter came through the speakers. All flesh is weak. Crethany are strong. You will learn. The transmission ended. Sarah looked around the command center. Her people stared at her, waiting for orders. Most of them were scientists, not soldiers. They studied soil samples and mineral deposits, not alien war machines. Ma'am, what are your orders? Torres asked Dot before Sarah could answer. The station shook. Emergency lights flashed red as something massive hit their outer defensive grid. The shields that protected them from space debris and small meteors sparked and failed in seconds. They're launching boarding pods, called out Dr. Martinez from the sensor station. 12 large objects heading for docking bays 3, 7, and 11. Sarah ran to the security station and pulled up the defensive grid. The station had automated defense turrets, emergency blast doors, and a small armory. Against space pirates or raiders, it might be enough. Against the Crethany, it would barely slow them down. The first boarding pod crashed through docking bay 3 with a sound like thunder. Sarah watched the security feed as the pod split open like a metal flower. Steam poured out, and then they came. The Crethany were bigger than the reports had said. Each warrior stood at least 12 feet tall, covered in dark armor that looked grown rather than built. Their arms were as thick as tree trunks, ending in hands that could crush a human skull like an egg. They carried weapons that hummed with energy, each one larger than anything a human could lift. The first Crethany warrior grabbed the blast door that sealed off the docking bay. The door was made of reinforced steel, designed to hold against explosive decompression. The alien pulled it from its frame like opening a cabinet. All security teams to docking bays 3, 7, and 11. Sarah ordered. Use the heavy weapons. Target their joints and weapon systems. She knew it would not be enough, but they had to try. Security Chief Reynolds led his team toward docking bay 3. They wore the best armor the station had and carried pulse rifles and plasma grenades. Sarah watched through the security cameras as they took positions behind cover and waited for the aliens to advance. The Crethany did not sneak or use tactics. They walked forward in a straight line, their heavy footsteps shaking the metal floor. When Reynolds and his team opened fire, the energy bolts hit the alien armor and scattered like raindrops on stone. One Crethany warrior aimed his weapon at the human position. The blast turned 3 sections of wall into molten metal. 2 security guards vanished in the explosion. The others fell back, dragging their wounded. They're through the first defensive line at Bay 3, Torres reported. Bay 7 and 11 are under attack too. Same results? Sarah felt the station shake again as more boarding pods hit other sections. The Crethany were not just attacking the docking bays. They were landing all over the station, cutting through the hull with tools that melted metal like butter. "How long until they reached the command center?" she asked. "At their current pace, maybe 2 hours," Torres said. "Our people are falling back, but they can't stop them. The Krethni are too strong, too well-armed." Sarah studied the tactical display. Red dots showed enemy positions throughout the station. Her own forces appeared as blue dots, and there were far fewer of them. Each time the display updated, more blue dots disappeared. But something caught her attention. The red dots moved in straight lines, always taking the most direct path to their targets. They smashed through every obstacle instead of going around. When her people fell back through maintenance shafts and service tunnels, the Krethni did not follow. They kept to the main corridors, even when it meant taking the longer route. "Torres, pull up the station blueprints. Show me the maintenance level." The lieutenant's fingers flew over his console. A new map appeared, showing the network of small passages that ran between the station's main levels. These tunnels were built for repair work and emergency access. A human could crawl through them, but nothing larger could fit. Sarah studied the map and felt the first spark of an idea. The Krethni were stronger, better armed, and seemingly unstoppable in direct combat. But they were also predictable. They relied on their overwhelming strength to solve every problem. Maybe strength was not the only way to win a fight. Sarah watched the security feeds as her people retreated deeper into the station. The Krethni moved like walking tanks, crushing everything in their path. Security Chief Reynolds had lost half his team in the first hour, but he was learning to fight smarter. "Reynolds, this is Chun. Stop trying to hold positions. Use hit and run tactics. Strike and fade." Reynolds' voice crackled through the comm. "Understood, Commander. But our weapons barely scratch their armor." "Then don't aim for their armor. Target their weapons, their vision ports, anything that looks like equipment. Make them work for every step." Sarah turned to Dr. Martinez, who had been studying the sensor readings from the alien weapons. "What have you found, Doctor?" Martinez looked up from his console, excitement mixed with fear in his eyes. "Their equipment is amazing, Commander. The power output from their weapons and armor is off our measurement scale. But there's something strange. Strange how? The energy signatures are not constant. They pulse in a specific pattern, like a heartbeat. And all the Krethni equipment pulses at exactly the same frequency." Lieutenant Torres pointed at his tactical display. "Commander, the aliens have taken levels 7 through 12. They're moving toward the research labs." Sarah nodded and turned back to Martinez. "Could that pulse be some kind of synchronization signal?" "It's possible. If their enhanced strength comes from their armor systems, they would need precise coordination between the biological and mechanical parts. Too much power could damage their bodies. Too little would reduce effectiveness." The station shook again. Through the observation window, Sarah could see more Krethni ships moving closer. They were preparing for a second wave of boarders. "Reynolds, fall back to level 15. Use the maintenance shafts to move between positions. Force them to split up. Copy that, Commander." Sarah pulled up the maintenance tunnel map again. The narrow passages connected every part of the station, but the Krethni could not follow. They were too large, and their armor was too bulky. It was like watching elephants try to chase mice through anthills. Dr. Patel, the team's electronics specialist, joined the group around the command console. "Commander, I've been monitoring the alien communication frequencies. They're using a narrow band signal that seems to coordinate their movements." "The same frequency as their equipment synchronization?" Martinez asked. "Very close. Maybe related systems." Sarah felt pieces of a plan forming in her mind. "Patel, could we jam their communications?" "Not with our current equipment. Their signal is too strong, too focused. We would need massive power output to block it." Torres looked up from his station. "Commander, Reynolds reports that the Crethani are having trouble coordinating when they can't see each other. When our people attack from different directions using the tunnels, the aliens get confused about where to shoot." Sarah smiled for the first time since the attack began. "They're not used to fighting an enemy they can't overpower. Show me the power distribution grid for this level." The station's power systems appeared on the main screen. Fusion reactors fed energy through a network of conduits and transformers to every part of the facility. The research labs used enormous amounts of power for their experiments. "Martinez, those research labs in Section C, what kind of equipment do they have?" "Electromagnetic field generators for mineral analysis. Particle accelerators for material testing. High-energy plasma systems for metallurgy work." "Could any of that be modified to generate electromagnetic interference?" Martinez's eyes went wide. "The field generators could be reconfigured, but it would take time. And we'd need to boost the power output far beyond safe levels." "How much time?" "Maybe an hour if we had a full engineering team. But the Crethani control that section now." Sarah studied the tactical display. The aliens had established positions in the main corridors, but had not entered the smaller spaces. They seemed to prefer open areas where they could use their size and strength advantages. "Torres, can we reach Section C through the maintenance tunnels?" "Yes, but it would be dangerous. The tunnels run right under their positions. If they detect us, they won't. They're not looking for threats they can't see or reach." "Reynolds, I need a distraction. Can you hit their positions from multiple directions at once?" Reynolds' voice came through the comm, slightly out of breath. "We can try, Commander. But we're running low on ammunition." "You don't need to hurt them. Just keep them busy looking the wrong way. Patel, Martinez, you with me? We're going to Section C." Sarah grabbed a portable toolkit and crawled into the nearest maintenance shaft. The tunnel was barely wide enough for a human, with pipes and cables running along the walls. Behind her, she could hear Patel and Martinez following. They moved slowly through the narrow space, guided by emergency lighting strips. The sound of weapons fire echoed through the station's hall. Reynolds and his team were keeping the Crethani busy, but Sarah could hear the aliens moving above them with heavy, confident steps. After 20 minutes of crawling, they reached Section C. Sarah carefully opened the access panel and looked into the research lab. The room was empty but undamaged. The Crethani had passed through, but had not bothered to destroy anything that was not in their way. "Martinez, start working on those field generators. Patel, I need you to tie them into the station's main power grid." "Commander, if we overload the system, it could damage the entire power network," Patel warned. "Right now, we need to survive the next few hours. Worry about repairs later." Martinez moved to the largest field generator and began removing access panels. This unit was designed to create precise electromagnetic fields for scanning mineral samples. If one reversed the polarity and boost the power input. "How long?" Sarah asked. "Give me 30 minutes. The sound of weapons fire was getting closer. Through the lab's main door, Sarah could see the flicker of energy blasts in the corridor outside. Reynolds' distraction was working, but it would not last forever. "Work faster," she said. "Both of you. We may have found their weakness, but only if we can exploit it before they find us." Sarah crouched beside Martinez as he worked on the field generator, her hands steady despite the weapons fire echoing through the corridors. 25 minutes had passed, and the electromagnetic pulse device was almost ready. "The frequency modulation is set," Martinez whispered, sweat beading on his forehead. "If I'm right about their synchronization system, this should disrupt the neural links between their bodies and their armor." Patel finished connecting the device to the main power grid. "Commander, I've rerouted power from the fusion reactors. When we activate this, every system on the station will overload for about 10 seconds. After that, we'll have maybe 5 minutes before the reactors shut down completely. Will it be enough? If Dr. Martinez is correct about their weakness, yes. If not, Patel shrugged. The sound of heavy footsteps approached the lab. Through the doorway, Sarah could see the glow of Crethany armor in the corridor. Reynolds' distraction had failed. The aliens were conducting a systematic search of every room. Sarah activated her communicator on the lowest setting. All personnel, this is Chun. In 60 seconds, every electronic system on this station will fail. Take cover and prepare for emergency lighting only. When the lights come back on, engage the enemy with everything you have. A Crethany warrior appeared in the doorway, his massive form filling the entire opening. His armor gleamed with internal lighting, and his weapon hummed with deadly energy. He saw the humans and raised his gun. Now! Sarah shouted. Martinez slammed his hand down on the activation switch. The field generator screamed to life, drawing power from the station's reactors. Every light on the station flashed brilliant white for an instant. Then, everything went dark. The electromagnetic pulse burst outward from Section C like an invisible wave. It passed through walls, floors, and the Crethany armor as if they were not there. For a few seconds, the only sound was the hum of the overloaded generator. Then the screaming started. The Crethany warrior in the doorway stumbled forward and crashed into the lab wall. His armor, which had seemed part of his body moments before, now appeared to weigh him down like chains. The internal lights flickered and died. His weapon fell from his hands and clattered to the floor. Emergency lighting activated throughout the station, casting everything in dim red light. Sarah stepped out of cover and looked at the fallen warrior. He was still alive, but his movements were slow and unsteady. Without his armor's power assistance, he could barely stand. Reynolds' voice crackled through the communicator. "Commander, I don't know what you did, but it worked. The aliens are down. They're not dead, but they can't fight." Sarah grabbed her rifle and moved toward the corridor. Throughout the station, she could see Crethany warriors struggling with their own equipment. Some had fallen and could not get up under the weight of their armor. Others leaned against walls, their enhanced strength gone. All teams, move now. Secure the alien warriors, but do not harm them unless they resist. They are our prisoners now. Sarah made her way through the station, stepping over disabled weapons and past confused aliens. The Crethany looked at her with something she had never expected to see in their eyes. Fear. In the main corridor, she found Security Chief Reynolds and his remaining team surrounding a group of Crethany. The aliens sat on the floor, their armor now too heavy to allow them to stand. Without their technological enhancements, they moved like elderly humans wearing lead suits. "How many did we capture?" Sarah asked. 43 so far. The rest are scattered throughout the station, but none of them are fighting back. Whatever you did, it's like you turned off their power. Dr. Martinez joined them, his portable scanner beeping as he examined the nearest Crethany warrior. The electromagnetic pulse severed the neural connections between their nervous systems and their armor. The armor still works, but their brains can't control it properly. They're getting conflicting signals from their enhanced muscles and their natural reflexes. How long will it last? Hard to say. The neural pathways might reconnect naturally, or they might need technological assistance. But for now, they're helpless. Sarah activated the station's communication system and broadcast on all frequencies. Attention, Crethany Fleet. This is Commander Sarah Chun of Research Station Kepler. Your ground forces are now our prisoners. They are unharmed but unable to fight. If you attempt to rescue them or attack this station, we will defend ourselves. The response came quickly, the alien voice no longer confident. What have you done to our warriors? We have done nothing permanent. Your people relied too heavily on their technological enhancements. We simply turned off their machines. There was a long silence. Then, our warriors are the strongest in the galaxy. Nothing can defeat Crethany's strength. Your warriors were strong, Sarah replied. But strength was not enough. You never learned to fight an enemy who thought instead of just hitting harder. Sarah cut the transmission and looked around at her people. They were exhausted, scared, but alive. The scientists and security guards, who had seemed so helpless against the Crethany invasion, were now guarding alien prisoners twice their size. Torres, get me a communication link to Earth Command. They need to know what happened here. Yes, ma'am. Should I tell them we won? Sarah looked at the disabled Crethany warriors and thought about the implications. The most feared military force in the galaxy had been defeated not by superior weapons or numbers, but by understanding and exploiting a single point of failure. Tell them we learned something important, she said. Tell them we learned that there's always a weakness, if you're smart enough to find it. 3 days after the battle, Sarah stood in the station's conference room facing a screen full of Earth Command officers. Admiral Foster, her superior, leaned forward with obvious interest. Let me understand this correctly, Commander Chung. You defeated an entire Crethany boarding force without destroying a single alien warrior? That's correct, Admiral. They are all alive and secured in Cargo Bay 12. Dr. Martinez has been studying their armor systems to understand how the neural interface works. General Morrison, head of Earth's military intelligence, spoke from another window on the screen. What's the status of the Crethany fleet? Still in orbit, sir. They haven't attempted another boarding action, but they haven't withdrawn either. I think they're trying to understand what happened to their ground forces. Admiral Foster nodded. Your preliminary report mentioned that you identified a critical vulnerability in their enhancement systems. How confident are you that this weakness exists in all Crethany technology? Sarah glanced at Dr. Martinez, who had joined the conference call. Doctor? Martinez cleared his throat nervously. Based on our analysis of captured equipment, sir, the neural synchronization frequency appears to be standardized across all Crethany military hardware. They use the same basic interface system for personal armor, weapons, vehicles, and even their starships. You're saying we could disable their entire military with electromagnetic interference? In theory, yes, but it would require precise frequency targeting and enormous power output. What we did here was like using a scalpel. To affect an entire fleet, we'd need something more like a hammer. General Morrison leaned back in his chair. How long would it take to develop weapons based on this principle? That's not really the important question, Sarah interrupted. Both officers looked at her with surprise. Sir, what we learned here isn't just about electromagnetic pulses or neural interfaces. We learned that the Crethany have a fundamental weakness in how they approach problems. Explain. Sarah activated the conference room's display screen and showed tactical recordings from the battle. Look at how they moved through the station. Straight lines, direct approaches, overwhelming force applied to every obstacle. They never adapted their tactics, never tried to outthink us. When we used the maintenance tunnels, they didn't follow. When we hit them from unexpected angles, they couldn't coordinate a response. Admiral Foster studied the recordings. You're saying they lack tactical flexibility. More than that, sir. Their entire civilization is built around the idea that being stronger is the only way to win. They've never had to develop sophisticated strategies because brute force always worked before. Dr. Martinez added, the Crethany we captured keep asking how we broke their strength. They can't understand that we didn't make them weaker. We just made their strength irrelevant. The communication system chimed with an incoming transmission from the Crethany fleet. Sarah looked at Admiral Foster, who nodded permission to answer. The alien commander's voice filled the room, but it sounded different now, less confident. "Human Chun, we would speak with you." "I'm here," Sarah replied. "Our war leaders do not understand what has happened. You did not defeat our warriors in honorable combat. You used trickery and deception." Sarah exchanged glances with the Earth Command officers. "We used strategy and tactics. We studied your strengths and found a way around them. This is not how wars are fought. The strong should defeat the weak. That is the natural order." "Maybe that's why you lost," Sarah said quietly. Another long pause. "Then, we would make an agreement. Return our warriors, and we will leave your space. We will not attack your people again." General Morrison activated his private channel. "Chun, don't agree to anything. We need those prisoners for intelligence." But Sarah had a different idea. "I'll return your warriors on one condition. You take a message to your empire." "What message?" "Tell them that humans don't fight the way you expect. We don't try to be stronger than our enemies. We try to be smarter. Tell them that every species in this galaxy has weaknesses, including yours, including ours. The difference is that we look for weaknesses instead of just assuming strength is enough." Admiral Foster looked intrigued. Sarah continued, "Tell your war leaders that if they want to fight humanity, they'd better learn to think like us. Because next time, we'll be ready with more than just electromagnetic pulses." The Krathini commander was quiet for several minutes. "Finally, we will carry your message. But the Empire may not listen. Many among us believe only in strength." "Then those are the ones who will lose," Sarah said. "Strength without wisdom is just violence. And violence without purpose is just destruction." After the transmission ended, Admiral Foster smiled. "That was well done, Commander. But do you really think they'll learn from this?" Sarah looked out the observation window at the alien fleet. Already, some of the ships were moving away from the station. "Some of them will, Admiral. The smart ones will realize that they need to change how they fight. The others will keep trying to solve every problem with bigger weapons and stronger armor. And when they do, then other species will learn what we learned here. That there's always a weakness if you're clever enough to find it. That being smart matters more than being strong. That humans might be small and weak compared to the Krathini, but we're very good at solving problems they can't even see." General Morrison nodded approvingly. "I want you to write a complete tactical analysis, Commander. Every detail of how you identified and exploited their weakness. This information could change how humanity approaches every future conflict." "Yes, sir. But I think the real lesson is simpler than that." "Which is?" Sarah watched the last of the Krathini ships disappear into hyperspace, carrying their recovered warriors and their wounded pride back to an empire that might never be the same. "Never fight your enemy's fight," she said. "Always make them fight yours." 3 months later, reports began reaching Earth from across the galaxy. Other species were studying the Battle of Kepler Station. Some were developing their own electromagnetic warfare systems. Others were analyzing Krathini tactics and finding different weaknesses to exploit. But the most important change was harder to measure. For the first time in centuries, species throughout the galaxy stopped being afraid of the Krathini Empire. They started asking a new question: if humans could defeat the strongest warriors in the galaxy by being smarter instead of stronger, what other impossible problems could be solved the same way? The age of brute force was ending. The age of human thinking had begun.